Hi guys, it's Mrs. Gurney here. I'm going to be showing you today how to make a pizza dough, okay? So watch this video, okay, to show you how to do that. So first of all, what I'm going to need is some flour. Before we do that though, just to go through health and safety regulations, just remember hand washing, crucially important, okay, as with everything that we do in cooking, so making sure you hand wash. Also, when you come on to actually doing the pizza part itself, okay, and I won't be showing you the video for that, it's pretty self-explanatory toppings. I think you can probably work that one yourself. So this is just the dough, okay? But when you come on to doing that, you're going to need a hand from an adult using the oven. Obviously, remember using oven gloves, okay, because ovens get really, really hot, okay? So this is going to take a couple of hours for it to prove and ferment, okay, and to rise, which is why we're starting it now. And a couple of hours later, I'll come back to it and do my toppings. So the first thing I'm going to need is I'm going to need some strong bread flour. So that's what I've got here. Okay, you can use double O flour as well, which is a pasta flour if you wanted to, but I've got a strong white bread flour. Okay, so what I'm going to go 650 grams into my bowl. Remember, make sure that your bowl is on 0 before you put anything into the dish for me, please. All right, because you really don't want to be measuring the bowl as well as your ingredients. Now, hopefully, my bowl's big enough to take this. Hopefully. Oh, 655, so I'm just going to take a little bit out. 650, lovely. Right, the secret with bread, okay, and any kind of bread dough, pizza dough, etc., is that we're looking first of all for our dry ingredients to go in, and then we add our wet. So the only real measuring that we're doing today is the flour itself. The rest is pretty easy to kind of measure using spoons. So what I'm going to do now, okay, is I'm going to make a well in the middle of my flour, and I'm going to pop in my yeast. This is 7 grams of yeast in a sachet. If you've got a tub of yeast, then just use a teaspoon. That will do just the same. So a teaspoon or a measuring teaspoon is fine. Okay, so I'm going to pop my yeast in now. Now, yeast is a microorganism. It's a living thing. And much like us as humans, we need a lot of different things to survive. So we need warmth, we need water, we need food, okay? So it's the right conditions. And yeast is exactly the same. And what happens with the yeast is, as it ferments, as it proves, okay, if it's in the right conditions, so it's got the warmth of the liquid that's going in there in a second, okay, in a warm condition with a food and that moisture as well, by activating it, what you're doing is the yeast almost wakes up and produces carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide is released and creates the bubbles, which when you come back to your dough in a couple of hours' time will be double the size. Okay, so that's why and how the yeast works. So what I need now is the following things. I'm now going to add in my last dry ingredient, which is 2 teaspoons of salt. Now, salt is one of those magic ingredients because it's going to give your bread some flavour, your pizza dough some flavour. And you want it to be quite flavoursome. So I'm going to pop that in there as well. Right, now this is the really important bit. Now what I've got in my jug is I've got 50 millilitres of warm milk and I've got 325 millilitres of warm water. Now it's really important that you go hand hot water. So if I put my hand into it, it shouldn't be really hot. It should just be able to, it's like tepid, okay? So that you can just about feel the warmth in there, all right? Any hotter and you'll kill the yeast. So we need to make sure it's warm, not hot, okay? The other thing is if you're not sure about how warm it could be, is just go with cold water and then in a really warm place and it will activate it that way as well. Now I'm not going to pour it all in one go. What I am going to do though, okay, is, before I put that in, I've missed one. I want 25 ml of olive oil. Obviously, pizza is an Italian dish. So I'm going with tablespoon. I'm going to go with 2 tablespoons. Okay, which is about 50 ml. And then I'm going to add in my warm liquid. And I'm going to add a little bit at a time into my well. And And now I'm going to start stirring in my flour and my yeasty mixture. And if you notice, I've not added all of my liquid in one go. I'm just adding a small amount at a time. There we go, Mrs. Gurney the messy cook. There we go. Knew it'd happen. So I'm only adding a little bit of my liquid in at a time. I'm not adding loads, because with a dough, if you add too much liquid, it can become too sticky. And if you don't add enough, it can be a bit crumbly. So I'm going to do your waggle in a second, and I'll show you how it needs to be. It's coming together quite nicely, but I still think it needs a bit more liquid. Okay, so I'm going to pour a bit more in. So like I say, a little at a time. Now if you do end up making your dough too liquidy, too wet, then it's quite simple. Keep adding your flour until it comes back together. If it's too dry, then add some more liquid. Okay, really simple. Right, I'm getting to the point now where I'm going to start getting my hands in there. Okay, so roll up your sleeves. Okay, make sure your hands are clean. Okay, and then just start bringing it together as a dough. And again, you'll start feeling, okay, is it too dry? Does it need more liquid? I think the answer to mine is I'm going to need a bit more liquid on this. So I'm going to lift my dough. I'm just going to pop a bit at the bottom, just to soak up some of that flour. Oh, it's lovely and warm. Okay, get in there. Right, and then the magic part in a second is going to be the kneading, which I'll show you what to do in just a moment. Okay, just start squashing it together, bring it together as a dough. The idea is that you have cleared all the flour from the bottom of your dish. So there should be no residual ingredients left in the bowl. See, I think it just needs a little bit more. Okay, let that soak up for a second. Get it all over me. Right, you're probably going to end up with doughy fingers at this stage. That's absolutely fine. Remember what I said. If it's too dry, add a bit more liquid. If it's a bit too sticky, add a bit more flour. You want it slightly on the stickier side, is where I would say. If it's too dry, your dough can be really, really hard. It's not nice, okay? It's really unworkable. You wouldn't be able to roll it out and stuff like that, okay? So just, I'd edge on the side of sticky is where I would be. Right, I'm going to move it out of my way now, so I'm going to move my bowl. So, before I start kneading, dough monster fingers. Okay, I'm going to show you. Right. There we go, nice dough. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start that kneading process. Now, the kneading process is about stretching the gluten strands. Now, in the flour, we have a protein which comes in wheat flour called gluten. And some people are intolerant to it, some people have got an allergy to it. And those people, they're called celiac. Okay, their condition is called celiac. So you can get gluten-free flour. We're using full gluten flour today. Works very similar. It can be a little bit drier though, okay? So I'm going to move that out of the way. You can flour your worktop if you really want to, but to be honest with you, I'd rather not, okay? Now this is where we've got to do this for about 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, I don't want to put any more flour in it because the more flour I put on my worktop, the drier it's going to become. And we don't always want it dry, okay, because I want that sort of edging on the side of sticky. If you find it sticking to your worktop, you see when I'm kneading mine, I'm pulling it away and there's no residue. If you're finding that there's residue on your worktop, then yeah, by all means, stick a bit of flour on it, okay, just to help it so it doesn't stick. All right, but you don't want too much because you really don't want it sticking. Now, back to the gluten. The longer you knead your dough, the more the gluten strands are stretched, pulled. It's almost like giving them a workout at the gym, okay? So I'm going to show you a bit of a technique. So what I'm going to do, okay, let me show you this again. So I'm pushing and I'm pulling it back on itself. So I'm pushing and I'm pulling it back on itself. I'm pushing and I'm pulling it back on itself. Okay, so it's like pushing it out and then folding it. So push and then fold over. Push and then fold over. And you need to really time yourself on this. You need to give yourself about 10 minutes. Okay, you should be exhausted by the end of it and your arms should hurt quite a bit. All right, and just remember to make sure your hands are washed while you're doing this process. Okay, now, how do you know when it's done? Well, mine's not done anywhere near yet. But what you do start to do is you can start feeling it being a lot more smooth and combined, okay? The ingredients feel smoother under your hands to the touch. It should feel smooth and elastic. It should have a kind of a shine to the surface, a bit glossy. And when you start pulling it apart, you can start to see the gluten strands developing in it. And what I mean by that is if we pull it, okay, and we squash a bit out, we hold it up to the light, you should start to see it not tearing, but you should start to see it being a little bit more sort of translucent through. See, it's tearing at the moment, so it's not ready. So let's try that again. Keep going with it. Now the process of making pizza is pretty straightforward after this. So I will show you up until the point where we've got the fermentation going on, the rise. And then you need to leave it a good hour and a half, 2 hours for it to do its thing. And once it's doubled in size, then you can divide your dough. You can roll it out. If you want to give it a second proving, you can. All right, and that'll make it even more fluffy and airy. I suppose it depends on what sort of pizza you like, whether you like a thin base or whether you like a really fat, fluffy base, okay, like a deep pan. And if you're doing deep pan, I'd probably recommend doing a second prove. But I like it thin and crusty, okay, that's the way I like my pizza bases. So I'm only going to do one rise. So once it's done, once you've given it time to ferment and rise and double in size, flour your worktop and roll it out so it's flat. Make sure you've greased and lined a baking sheet. And then obviously then you can go with your toppings. So it's up to you whether you do, it's a controversial choice, do you go with tomato sauce, barbecue sauce, all sorts, okay? So it's up to you. Perhaps a chilli sauce, who knows, okay? And then obviously you've got your layer of cheese and then whatever toppings you want on top of it. And then you put that in the oven. So probably fan 160 degrees C, 180 conventional oven, and gas mark 4 probably, okay? And that will take about 20-25 minutes. You want it so that your base is cooked underneath. You want it so that it's nice and crispy around the edge. Give yourself a crust. Don't take your toppings all to the edge. Bring it out when you're ready. And eat and enjoy. Right. We're getting there. Check the time. Right then. Okay, let's have a little look now then. So if I pull it, and I hold that up, you can start to see the gluten strands developing and it becomes a lot more translucent. It's not ripping as much. It's got the strength of that strong gluten. Okay, can you see that, how translucent that's becoming? And that's what you want. The more translucent it becomes, the less rips you get, the better work the gluten. And the gluten is what's going to make your pizza dough nice and strong. Okay? And it's all about the kneading, getting your quantities right, feeling and being intuitive with it. If it's too sticky, add flour. If it's too dry, add a bit more water. Right, now I'm going to shake that into a ball, like so. I'm going to bring back my bowl from earlier on, and I'm going to use some of the olive oil. Doesn't matter that the bowl's not clean. Okay, and I'm just going to use my fingers now, okay, just to massage the oil into the bowl. And this is going to stop it sticking on the sides, because this is the bowl I'm going to use for my proof, for my rise. So I'm going to place, I'm just going to give it a bit of a massage with the oil. I mean, don't saturate it. You don't want it in a bowl that's absolutely saturated with oil, but just enough. And then I'm going to pop him in there. Okay. And then I'm going to get some cling film. Find some in the drawer. There we go. I'm going to cling the top. Now, my nan would have done this with a tea towel. I quite like cling film because it almost creates like a greenhouse. So there's my cling. Pop it on there. And then the secret, find somewhere warm for it to go, okay? Don't stick it on top of a radiator, but you could put it in your airing cupboard. If that's warm, you could put it, if it's a sunny day, you could put it on your windowsill. Anywhere is warm, okay? Not hot, because again, you'll kill the yeast. So don't put your oven on and pop it on top of the oven, okay? Buy a radiator, buy a windowsill, somewhere warm in your airing cupboard, okay? All right, and that's it. And then after that, once it's done and it's doubled in size, take it out, roll it out, and then do your toppings and put it in the oven, okay? Really simple. Right, guys, it's been a pleasure as always. I'll catch you next time. Bye.